A great many plastic products are made by compression molding on semi-automatic presses. In compression molding pieces, such as these plastic cases, first come the preparatory steps, which have already been carried out. Weighing out the charge for each cavity, cleaning the mold thoroughly of all leftover molding material and foreign particles using an air hose and soft brass or copper tools, and loading the charges into the mold cavities, making certain not to double shot any cavity. With all the charges loaded into the cavities, you are now ready to mold the pieces. The pressure and heat have been adjusted for this particular job by the foreman. Now apply the pressure so the ram begins to move the lower half of the mold towards the upper half. Keep your hands clear of the press when it's closing. As the upper and lower parts of the mold are about to come in contact, slow down the movement of the ram and then gradually increase the pressure so that the two halves of the mold close slowly. If the press were closed too quickly, the material would not have sufficient time to soften, and some of the mold parts might break. But when the press is closed slowly, the material is gradually made soft by the combination of heat and pressure, so that it flows quite easily. So close the press gradually. Then open it slightly. This breathing allows trapped gases and moisture which form in the mold due to chemical reactions to escape. Finally, close the mold tight again. Note the time when you close the press and keep track of it so as to open it on schedule. Inside the mold, the piece cures under heat and pressure, the material fusing permanently into rigid form. If the material were not allowed to cure long enough, there would be blisters on the surface of the molded piece. Also, it might not have the properties required for the part, such as this undercured piece, which is warped. So be sure to allow the specified curing time. Open the press slowly at first, and then all the way. Now remove the pieces. Make certain no pieces are left in the cavities that might result in an overloaded cavity and a broken mold. Be sure to wear gloves to protect your hands from the hot mold. Gloves will also protect you from the sharp flash. Molded pieces shrink slightly as they cool, so it is sometimes necessary, as in this case, to place the molded pieces on a cooling fixture. The blocks will keep the pieces from warping while they are cooling and shrinking. Do this the moment the pieces come out of the mold. When the specified cooling time has elapsed, remove the pieces from the cooling blocks. Break off the flash and excess material, which can easily be removed by hand. The rest will have to be done by special finishing methods, which will smooth and polish the parting lines and rough spots. Also, inspect the pieces to see if you can find any visible defects, so that you won't continue to make more defective pieces that will be rejected and would otherwise not be detected until they reached an inspector. If the pieces seem all right, pack them for finishing or shipment. Handling directions differ for each type of piece. In this case, just pack the pieces in tight, regular rows. In order to carry out production with a maximum of efficiency, you must plan out your job and execute the steps in a coordinated sequence. After you have weighed out the charges for the first cycle, loaded them into the mold cavities, and closed the press, get ready for the next cycle. Prepare and weigh the charges. Then, when the curing time is up for the first cycle, open the press. Remove the pieces. Place them on a cooling block. Then clean the mold halves. Load the charges into the mold cavity. Then close the press and allow the prescribed curing period. Now, while these pieces are curing in the mold, weigh out the charges for the next cycle. Then, when the cooling time is up, remove the pieces you previously placed on the cooling block. Break off the flash, inspect the pieces for visible defects, and pack them as required. From now on, continue this sequence of operations, carrying out all the necessary precautions. A coordinated sequence is very important. In a relatively short time, you can develop the proper rhythm and coordination which keeps production up to quota and also makes the work easier. Carrying out the operations on schedule becomes almost second nature. In this way, the whole cycle is executed smoothly and efficiently and with a minimum of waste motion. If you mold several bad pieces in succession, call the foreman at once to check on the trouble, so as not to continue to waste material by making more defective pieces. In the same way, if something doesn't seem quite right with the way the press operates, or if you observe some leak or other symptom that might indicate faulty operation, report it at once to the foreman. In this way, minor flaws which could develop into major damage can be corrected. In review, then, the fundamental steps essential to molding a part on a semi-automatic compression press are: weigh out the charges accurately and avoid contamination. Clean the mold thoroughly. Load the charges and don't double-shot any cavity. And then close the press slowly and carefully. Breathe the mold. Allow the correct curing time before opening the press slowly and carefully. Remove the pieces and place them on cooling fixtures. Break off the flash, inspect the pieces, and pack them. Finally, develop a rhythmic, coordinated, properly timed sequence in order to mold part after part with a minimum of waste time and motion.